On this episode of Fired Up.
But this is clearly the product of somebody who did not think it through.
Well, you drop a bad guy right in the middle of a 6th grade class waving a gun.
Have they heard of PTSD? Like, these kids could have been really traumatized and done permanent damage. It's horrifying.
We're here in Wickiup, Arizona at the Big Sandy machine gun shoot.
Big gang, you ain't no f***ing doing is shut your mouth.
The Mazda M50.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to Fired Up. I'm your host of the show, Bob Irwin, here from the gun store in Las Vegas. Our panel discussions on today's show are going to include an impromptu training lesson for children in a school on how to get away from a terrorist, a really nice self-defense case, defending of others case out of Arizona, and a difficult case where a father was the first one to find his daughter's rapist when the police were hunting the guy down. We're going to start today by talking about one of our great concerns is the shooting incidents that take place at soft targets. Obviously the most dangerous and worst soft target are schools, particularly grade schools. Can be devastating if we have a shooter get loose. So most of the school districts around the country are doing training as to what their teachers should do and so forth if something like that happens. And the Wayne County School District prepared their staff with some training. Unfortunately, part of that training involved having a pretend attacker burst into one of their classrooms. Not the smartest thing they've ever done.
Yeah, let's start a fire in the middle of the room so we can have a fire drill.
Yeah.
Probably not the smartest thing in the world.
Have they heard of PTSD? Like, these kids could have been really traumatized and done permanent damage. It's horrifying.
This is not the first time anything like this has happened. Because I, from personal experience, I can relate to a story. When I was in the police academy a gazillion years ago, we were listening. We were listening to this mind-numbing lawyer drone on incessantly on some. It wasn't Michael. But anyway, all of a sudden, this armed guy bursts into the classroom. This is in a police academy, and started yelling at the lawyer, disparaging his race, ethnic origin, and sexual preferences. Pulls out a Smith & Wesson Model 36 snub nose and proceeds to fire 5 blanks at the guy, and the guy falls over, and the guy takes off down the road. The premise of the exercise was that this guy was going to be in and out the door in 5 seconds, and they were training for observation. Who was he? How what? Well, before the instructor could stop, the 5 guys pile out after this guy. Now they observed that he had a 5-shot revolver and had fired 5 rounds. Fortunately, all of our guns were in the armory because we just came off the range, and they just beat the hell out of this guy. The detective who was playing the bad guy ended up in the hospital. 3 or 4 recruits ended up in the hospital because they were just trying to beat each other to get this guy. The lawyer tried to break everything up. He ended up being injured, and the whole thing was an utter fiasco. And I could see something like, it was hilarious. But but I could see something, God forbid, one of the recruits were carrying concealed and killed this guy. Could have killed him, but I could see. People don't think of the ramifications that could happen from something like this.
I doubt in this case that they bothered to notify the local police department. What if somebody had a phone and called and they had a full crash to the school, or some kid dove out through a glass window or did something else or suffered some trauma?
Something like I would have been many times when my kids were younger. I went and picked them up in plain clothes. I see some guy running around with a ski mask on and a gun, he's going to get shot.
Well, when we used to shoot those shoot movies, we filmed scenarios at businesses and all that, and we had big signs, movie in progress. We had some marked police cars there, and we still got calls. There's a guy running down the street with a gun. Yeah, we know it's a movie.
Well, except the only people who didn't know, of course, were the kids. We're dealing with a 6th grade class, 12, 13-year-olds. One of them could have bashed this guy with a chair, or suffered from post-traumatic stress, or
The possibility for teaching the kids what to do in a situation like this, I understand like that is a lesson that needs to be taught to the children, but this is not the format to do it. The damage far outweighs the learning. I mean, do you think these kids are like, I'm really glad that happened to me today?
Well, and I'm sure that they were thinking, we all remember being in school and the fire alarm going off and the teacher going, okay, now everybody put your books down and stand up. But we'd gone through some kind of a drill. I lived in the Midwest as a small child, and we had tornado drills where the tornado sirens would go off, and we'd all go to the cellar of the school. And somebody probably thought, well, we do that, and we don't tell them we're going to have a fire drill today during second period. But this is clearly the product of somebody who did not think it through.
Well, there's no training value out of this. This is just panic.
Right.
And it's like, hey, remember how we're going to do this? Hey, this may happen today. There's no. It's like when you're doing law enforcement or military training, putting people in a no-win situation.
And what happens?
There's no training value.
If they think that this is just a training drill now, what happens to the kids? Maybe they don't have the state of mind to realize this was pretend. What about next time they think it's just pretend, if, God forbid, something truly does happen?
More likely, there's going to be litigation. I haven't found any yet, but it's too new for that pretty much. Yeah. At some point, some attorney is going to round up some parents and some kids who are having a hard time sleeping, or, Mommy, Daddy, I don't want to go to school today. This is going to turn into an issue because the PTSD is the biggest one. They scared these kids senseless for no particularly good reason.
And you hit it right on the head. What a great, oh, I don't feel good. I don't want to go there because the bad man could come to school again and scare me. So, they've left themselves wide open.
It's certainly going to cause some of them nightmares. I mean, you're dealing with all sorts of children in this class with all sorts of personalities and so forth. I've often said this on these shows when we talk, but this is so stupid. I cannot imagine the school setting this up with all the stuff they had to go through to get the ski mask and a fake gun and have dress one of the teachers up and so on, to totally surprise a sixth grade class. I mean, what could possibly go wrong here? Yeah. Everything.
Well, we had that movie that with the cowboy action shooters at the premiere of one of the recent cowboy movie, and they all showed up in the parking lot and had a pretend gunfight, and all hell broke loose. I mean,
you wonder what they were thinking, and I'd have to agree with you, Michael. There's bound to be some litigation over this, or some kind of a parents. I'm sure they're getting a lot of complaints about it, that this shouldn't happen, but it's not really related to a fire drill. Fire drills, you tell the kid there isn't actually a fire they can see, and they all line up and walk out. You drop a bad guy right in the middle of a sixth grade class waving a gun. Got to be something wrong with, I don't know, people sometimes don't think through what they're doing in all walks of life, and certainly this one they did not. We're going to take a little break here. We'll be right back after a few messages. Don't go away.
More discussion on guns, politics, and self-defense when we come back on Fired Up. So he left and then went and got guns, and then he came back to the party with a rifle, and he began firing at the partygoers.
A nice concealed weapon holder at the party drew his own handgun and shot him.
Welcome back to Fired Up. We talk on the show a lot about civilian use of firearms for self-defense, and once in a while we get a really nice case where something happened here in Glendale, Arizona that appears it was a great defense of others case, where a concealed weapon holder was able to jump in and maybe save a mass shooting all by himself. Pretty good case.
Yeah, it started with a belligerent 27-year-old guest being asked to leave the house party at around like 1:30. Then he apparently didn't want to be excused from the party, so he left and then went and got guns. And then he came back to the party with a rifle, and he began firing at the partygoers.
And then a nice concealed weapon holder at the party drew his own handgun and shot him.
How many times have I said, a bad guy with a gun is only stopped with a good guy with a
No,
gun.
Wayne LaPierre said that.
Yeah, I know, but I said it too many
Okay.
times because I agree with it. I mean, come on, you've got, here's the guy who's the first line of defense. You know, when seconds counts, the police are minutes away, and this is a perfect example of that. You know, hey, I'm going to wait for the police to get here while I'm hiding behind the punch bowl while this guy takes a rifle and starts shooting.
Right.
It doesn't work.
Now, fortunately, the person who drew his concealed firearm and stopped the shooter did wait for the police, which is the right thing to do.
Oh, of course.
He cooperated with the investigation. The police have announced he hasn't been charged. Now, that can be a little misleading because it's actually the district attorney's office or the attorney general's office of the state that will decide whether he's charged, but it sure sounds like the police are going to put in the report he did everything right. And he stopped this individual. The 27-year-old who was shooting at the party is clearly going to be charged with probably a whole host of crimes ranging from attempted murder down to criminal possession of a firearm.
But if he wasn't stopped, look at the consequences of another mass shooting. And I
Yeah,
can
this
see it
is
all over, yeah.
this is the perfect case. This happens. Things like this happen statistically about 12,000 times a year in the United States. This particular scenario where somebody comes up with a gun and defends innocent people, where no one is killed. We're just talking about firing toward the people or firing and not hitting them. Where somebody actually kills the opponent is very rare, about 10% of those. But this was a perfect case of somebody being in the right place at the right time and having the wherewithal and the gumption to actually do something. And we've got a building here that's packed with partygoers, and he literally saved everybody's life. This is a perfect scenario.
They didn't say what kind of gun he had. They didn't say if he had like the evil assault rifle. Because I know in like all the mass shootings, they want to target. It's the AR-15. It's let's put a name to the gun.
Well,
they didn't say what it was or what the good guy had.
And
for
you
that
know
matter. It's a
why?
handgun.
Because this one didn't go to form. The guy with the EBR didn't kill a bunch of people. The good guy with a lawfully possessed handgun stopped him, and so the media is not going to go after the EBR because then they have to admit the guy with the Glock or the Smith & Wesson or whatever it was stepped in and stopped him, which the mainstream media doesn't want that narrative to get out there.
Yeah, we only glorify what kind of gun it was when it's
Yeah, you know,
wrongfully
and
used.
I don't want to be whiny, but no gun is good or bad. You know, I mean, oh, that's a good gun. Oh, that's a good. I mean, quality-wise, yeah, that's a good gun. That's a POS. But you know, I mean, as far as they don't have personalities.
Well, they don't. But Emily's right. The media has taken the opportunity at every turn to say certain firearms, based upon their cosmetics, are evil
looking.
Black rifles, evil looking.
That's
rifles.
what EBR. I like
EBR,
that. I like that evil black rifle. That's
And
pretty cool.
They've taken that and given it human personality, right? Because they don't want to say the person operating the tool was at fault. I keep waiting the next time there's a knife attack or a hammer attack for it to become, the evil framing hammer or something like that.
Ooh, the claw hammer.
We're not going to hear that.
No,
So-
this is just a clean, righteous use of force where it was needed to be used. So the news media didn't pick up what kind of rifle he had. They didn't pick up what kind of pistol the defensive guy had. They didn't pick up who was black, who was white. Was this a racial shooting?
You wouldn't have heard about it at all unless we were on their show.
Well, yeah,
basically.
You probably won't find this on your local media news. This took place about a week ago. We're filming the show usually about a week before you people see it. So this was about 2 weeks ago this took place. And you won't see it because it's an absolute, here we have a concealed weapon holder who obviously took his training seriously or has additional training from being in the military or something. He wasn't an ex-cop, or they would have mentioned that in the article. So
They don't want to make a good guy with a gun, regardless
That
of
would
the
have been a rogue
circumstances.
ex-cop and something.
you know about rogue ex-cop?
Seen a few of those, have we?
There's a few sitting around this show sometimes.
No.
But we've got a guy who knows how to use his firearm under stress, didn't hit anybody that shouldn't have been hit, and immediately called the police, set his gun down when the operator said, if everything's clear and the guy's not a danger, please don't have your gun in your hand. You already knew that when the officers arrived. It was perfect.
Well, and you know, it's just like the Clackamas Mall shooting in Oregon. You know, that the young man pulled his Glock out, pointed at the kid that was doing the shooting. The kid saw him, and immediately killed himself. The kid didn't, and the CCW holder didn't have a clear shot. He couldn't take the shot. He was wary of his background. He was trained correctly, but the media doesn't want to really give him the credit for kind of stopping this kid, which he actually did. The kid decided he wanted to go out on his own terms. But, you know, it's just what I've said before. You know, there's good guys with guns and, you know, more armed citizens and less crime.
The only time you hear about it, like, I mean, of course on this show, but I mean, I know we're all members of the NRA, but there's an article and you get into Rifleman or the Freedom, the Armed Citizen. And sometimes you read, I mean, I've read several instances like this that you never hear about. I mean, never hear. It's never on the national news. It's never on the, you know, I mean, because God, that's
well, and
that's
you never
terrible.
hear about how many times have we all known, and you know, in law enforcement, you know, you get the call, hey, I just had to pull a gun on a guy because he was trying to rob me and he ran away. You know, a citizen used a gun to defend themselves, or you know, and of course that never hits the news because that wouldn't be proper.
Quite often, those are self-reporting. But that happens all the time without the police becoming involved.
Right,
because
exactly.
the individual doesn't call.
Right.
Whether they should or not is debatable, but they don't call, so it doesn't get into the reports. 2.1 million times a year, according to the most advanced research in the area, firearms are used in defense, as opposed to about 540,000 criminal uses, maybe 600,000 criminal uses of firearms a year. I think it would be helpful if the media as a whole, how many times have we heard about a car that went out of control and killed somebody? We never hear the driver lost control. It's a car went out of control. It would be interesting if they would start reporting this, because you said something was important. A bad guy stops when a good guy with a gun arrives. So if they would report, today there was a shooting, but when 4 rifles showed up, the cops had them, but it was 4 rifles that showed up and stopped him. Because that's really what happens. I used to get into a debate all the time with this liberal friend of mine. Well, why do you carry guns everywhere? You don't need them everywhere.
Why do you have a
get
liberal
them to. Well, I know it's a failing of mine, but it was really difficult to explain to them that as a peace officer, it wasn't the badge, it wasn't the presence, it wasn't the tone of voice that got people to do what I asked them to do. It was my open and apparent ability to make them do what I wanted them to do. And that's what, when police arrive, they're bringing firearms with them. That's why the bad guys stop, because now suddenly it's real. I'm not the only guy here with a gun.
I don't want to get shot, and that's exactly what happens. And you know, you were talking earlier, Tony, about the evil gun. There's a joke going around the internet. You know, well, I set my AR-15 out on the front porch all day, and funny, it didn't shoot anybody.
Yeah.
You know, the evil assault rifle never assaulted anybody. So.
Yeah, we go through that you remember there was a poster somebody put out recently with a picture of a gun show, like 1,000 people running around all these tables. If guns are so dangerous, why are all these people not dead?
Yeah, really.
Yeah. It's this is just a great case. I wanted to get it on. Kudos to the young man here, 39-year-old man who had the fortitude to do this and save a lot of lives. And this, folks, is a mass shooting that never happened.
Because of a gun.
Of a concealed weapon holder.
Right.
Being there. We'll be right back.
We'll have more Fired Up when we come back.
We're here in Wickiup, Arizona at the Big Sandy Machine Gun Shoot. Hi, this is Tony D with the Fired Up with Bob show from Las Vegas. We're here in Wickiup, Arizona at the Big Sandy Machine Gun Shoot. And this is one of the founders of the shoot here is Kenton Tucker. And Kenton, we want to thank you for putting on such a great time.
Thank you, Tony. We've been doing this a long time together, you know.
Yeah.
I think since '78, Tony and I have been out here in various places in Arizona doing shoots. And this place has been in existence for 10 years. And as long as I can remember, Tony's been out here. We put on a large shoot We have competitions, shoot up 2 million rounds of ammunition. It's a big, huge event. Do training, matches, rentals, machine gun rentals. We do just about everything.
And the suppressor, we have a suppressor demonstration. Unfortunately, I have a sprained rotator cuff, and I can't defend my. We're both lame.
Yeah, I've got a shattered left arm.
So we've been taking it easy during this shoot here. First time here at the Big Sandy, they've added a gun show, and here we are in the middle of nowhere, and Kenton set up
a gun show. Yeah,
have a gun show.
Hey, it's a mystery. It just popped up, you know.
And how's that been going?
Actually, the vendors are just thrilled, absolutely thrilled. They have new people. They've got new clientele to sell to from all the surrounding areas, and they're doing extremely well.
That's good.
And that's fantastic. You hate to see them not do well.
I know, really, yeah.
You know?
In fact, I just went up and just bought some more tracer for tonight, so it's going to be fun.
You know?
I know, I'm a traceraholic.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
It's a step process to get rid of that. But anyway.
There's some guns on the line here that are extremely rare. You'd never see them anywhere else in the world. And it's living history to see some of this stuff actually being used and shot. And and I met a guy today from Milan, Italy.
Yeah.
And you know how I am with the Italian stuff.
I know how that is.
And him and I, we were like long lost brothers talking, and it was great. And we have tonight is going to be spectacular with the fireworks. And,
Right. We're going to put out 300 explosive targets, and then we put out 200 fireworks, and we're putting out 5 16-inch shells. So that's going to be spectacular, you know.
Then we have the RC radio controlled airplanes that we shoot at, and this is twice a year. This is all I live for. It's probably the most fantastic weekend of the whole year. And thanks to Kenton and Ed, they put on a hell of a show, and we're really appreciative.
Well, we thank for you coming, buddy. You've been supporting us forever.
I haven't missed one yet.
Yeah, no, he hasn't.
I haven't missed one yet.
Even with a bum shoulder, you show up.
I put off weddings and everything. I mean, this is my wife even knows this is the priority. Number one, we're coming here.
Oh,
Big
absolutely.
Sandy.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Ken.
Anytime,
Bob from Las Vegas, good friend of mine. And this is a fine firearm. What is this now?
Czechoslovakian ZB-26.
ZB-26 is very similar to the Bren that I was just shooting, only this is an 8mm version. Very, very cool gun. Very high grade, nice firearm. We're going to shoot some racers tonight. We should be able to see them. Goes fast when you're having fun, huh?
That's right.
This is my buddy Lee Chavez from Vegas also. He's got a very rare gun, an MP-42 Tiger tank mount. And this is an original gun. It's a bring back from World War II. Very cool gun, and we're going to light it up. lot of hits before they go down, and then they'll put them back together again. So a lot of the bullets don't do anything either. You got to hit servo, or you got to hit motor, or you got to hit the gas tank. Otherwise, they'll keep flying.
We'll have more Fired Up when we come back.
Here we are at the Big Sandy, and as you can see in the back, we got a tank. Dennis, this is Dennis, one of the crew guys. Tell us what this is, Dennis.
My name's Dennis Blanford, and I'm the driver of an M18 Hellcat, manufactured in 1943. This tank weighs 18 tons. It goes 59 miles an hour. It can squeeze 60 out of it if you're doing good.
A little bit more. What's the gun? What's the main gun?
It fires a 76 millimeter high velocity gun. The round's about 8 inches longer than a standard Sherman tank round from World War II. We manufacture our own shells, as there are only 4 of these guns in existence that fire, so there's nothing.
You haul this thing in from?
We hauled this in from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
All the way up into the mountains of Arizona, from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
All the way up to the mountains of Arizona. We had it in Utah for last month. We filmed a war movie over there called The Void, Saints and Soldiers, and the movie's based on this tank, the Avenging Angel. And it is a Cadillac of tanks. It's the finest tank that they ever made. It's not actually a tank, it's a tank destroyer. It was made to snipe other tanks. So the idea is to run and shoot. You pull up, you fire, and you run to another location, and you fire, and you run to another location, and you fire. The German tanks all had hand crank turrets, and so the turret could not traverse as fast as this tank could go. This tank has a hydraulic turret on it. It has a manual turret too, but the turret will rotate full 360 degrees in 15 seconds. So needless to say, if anybody's standing on the deck, they'll be swept right on off. And that's how you did it.
This is Jerry. Jerry was a lucky guy who just got to shoot this tank. What was the experience like for you, Jerry?
Oh, that's awesome. That's the second time I've got to shoot it.
Really?
This year, last year. That's definitely an experience that I think everyone should have at least once, is to shoot a tank.
All right, thank you very much. The Mazda M50. Hi, this is Tony D with the Gun Store in Las Vegas. Today's historical firearm is the Mazda M50. This is a 9mm submachine gun made by Mazda in Denmark, and it's a very unique gun. It's all sheet metal, has a folding stock that folds in this way, and the whole thing opens up like a clamshell. You would unscrew the barrel nut, and the whole thing would fold open, and all the parts would be laying inside there. It's a very unique gun. It wasn't very popular. It wasn't adopted by too many armed forces or anything, because right after the war there was a tremendous amount of submachine guns available. So being a new innovative design, it didn't go over very well. It also fires from an open bolt, like most submachine guns, and it is in 9mm also. The unique thing about this gun, however, is you have to hold this in. This is a grip safety, so you have to hold the gun by the magazine in order to fire it. If you didn't hold that in and the bolt went forward, it would stop right there. So you had to hold that in order for it to go fully forward. It's kind of a unique gun. It's a full auto only. It does not have a selector on it. All it has is a safe and fire switch here. Some of the guns were made for our CIA, and they're called CIA guns because there's no markings on them at all, and there was a special contract through the CIA. And this backstrap was covered in leather, and they were black. So you could tell the CIA contract guns. There was no markings on them. It is popular. You've seen it in a few movies. I'm not going to tell you which ones, but now you're going to have to look for it. It was popular with Hollywood, and but wasn't very commercially successful. So we're going to shoot it and show you how you go. It goes about 450 to 500 rounds a minute. Quite slow shooting, very controllable, and it's easy to shoot. Okay, we're going to insert the magazine, and we'll do some on full auto with short burst, and then we'll have at it with the rest of it. Now you notice I have to hold the grip safety in. We'll get a sight picture. We're back, and she's empty. Very pleasant gun to shoot. I can't say it's one of my favorites.
Big game, you ain't know what you doing, and shut your mouth.
All right, we're going to do Moron of the Week now. This will hopefully make you a little more conscious of your gun safety, even though you'd probably never be this dumb.
Not so tough now, Labor's hot little big game in the wrong hood. You messing with this? AK-47, 30 round shot move, 30 round shot. You're ready to plunk straight up your. Put the shit right here, dog. Come on. You ain't even speaking game. You ain't know what you doing, and shut your mouth. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Kid wanted to be a gangster. Great role models for him. Dad perhaps shouldn't leave his AK-47 out. Hopefully this will be well edited by the time you see it.
The reason we want to be careful about how we make that phone call and be calm before we do is that 911 tape will undoubtedly be listened to by the investigators and may be played at a trial, whether a criminal or civil matter. Last week we talked about calling the police after a shooting incident has happened. The reason we want to be careful about how we make that phone call and be calm before we do is that 911 tape will undoubtedly be listened to by the investigators and may be played at a trial, whether a criminal or civil matter. The other thing you need to remember is, even though you're under a lot of stress, if it's safe to remain at the scene, you should do so. In many jurisdictions, prosecutors are allowed to comment on flight. And to many police officers and civilians, flight equals guilt, even though that's not necessarily the case. You may be under a lot of stress and simply want to get away from what is a bad incident. Fight that urge. Again, if it's safe to remain where you're at and call the police, do so. That will show that you acted in self-defense and that you were not trying to leave the scene of a potential crime. Also remember, unless you're out in the middle of nowhere, probably somebody heard what has happened and they're going to be calling the police as well. The last thing you want is 4 or 5 people reporting that you're running down the street after shooting another individual. You acted appropriately. Stand there, wait for the police, and they will respond to the scene. We'll talk about this more next week.
But this is actually a great way to have a method of self-defense always readily available. Another product that we carry here at the gun store is the Saber Red pepper spray. Now this is a model that actually has a detachable keychain. You can carry this right on your keys, connect it to your purse. For the gentlemen, we do have it available in colors that are not pink. But this is actually a great way to have a method of self-defense always readily available. This is in your hand if you're you're driving your car, it's next to your keys. If you're opening your door, if you're walking anywhere, this can absolutely be in your hand at any time. One of the benefits to the Saber Red pepper spray is the breakaway keychain. Now, if you're driving, this is obviously going to be attached to your keys, or it's going to be attached to your purse. And you're probably wondering how you're going to get it out of there. There is an easy push tab right here that makes it detachable, so that if you have to grab for it, you absolutely can break it away from your keys or from your purse, and you can go ahead and use it. If you're going out for a jog, you're not taking your keys, hold it right in your hand. Then once you're ready to attach it back to whatever safety area that you keep it in your purse or your keys, you just pop it right back in and you're ready to go. It's very, very simple and very easy to operate, and this is a working model, so I'm just going to be careful here. You just flip that tab to where it's face out and you can see that the hole is exposed, and you push down. This is going to deliver a stream into your assailant. One of the downsides is that you want to be aware of where you are spraying it. If it is a confined space, obviously that air is going to circulate. You want to be aware of the wind. But this is a way to get the pepper spray into your assailant's eyes and to disable them for moments where you can get away. But this is not a long-term solution. There are people that have shown that they are resistant to pepper spray. I myself am not. I would not want to test the merits of this, but this is a wonderful way as just another added layer of safety to be able to carry on your person. And obviously this can be carried in conjunction to a taser or a firearm or what have you that is also in your purse. But this is a really easy way, just attaches right to your keychain, and we carry it here in the gun store for $9.95. I mean, it's so cheap you almost can't afford not to. We'll have more Fired Up when we come back.
Fired 4 rounds, 2 hit the bad guy, DRT.
And DRT legal term stands for?
Dead right there.
Okay.
Hey, welcome back to Fired Up. We are going to talk now about a really tough case. This was in upstate New York, and basically we had a young woman raped, and her father happened to be the person who caught the rapist before the police did.
Caught's an interesting term to use in this particular situation. We sympathize with the father, obviously, but he handled the problem and handled the takedown the way Tony has talked about in the past with home defense.
12 gauge. The Remington Vegematic. Fired 4 rounds, 2 hit the bad guy, DRT.
And DRT legal term stands for?
Dead right there.
Okay.
Whether
we all sympathize with this guy.
Right.
Clearly, we all sympathize with him. He's out.
I can imagine the emotions that he was going through his mind at that particular point. This is his daughter that had just been raped, and
a lot of people were out looking for this individual, but unfortunately, man needed killing, or he deserved it, isn't a defense under any circumstance. Of course, there was only a couple of people there at the time. One of them's not going to testify because he's DRT. We see this sometimes in court, Bob.
Now,
actually,
is the charge second degree?
Charge is second degree.
Okay.
The judge reduced his bail to $50,000.
It's like heat of the moment, passion, angry type.
Heat of the moment and passion comes into second degree. What it really does is it limits the potential sentence to 5 to 25 years.
Wasn't
New
premeditated.
York doesn't have a death penalty, but an A felony there, a first-degree murder, could be up to life in prison. So,
and these are just coming from the law enforcement side of the house. These are some of the just worst things in the world because, I'm a father of 2 girls, and I've said heaven forbid anybody ever hurt one of my daughters. And coming in here, you got to emphasize with this guy, but at the end of the day, you got to do your job, and that's just tough to say. Good shooting, bro, but put your hands behind your back.
Well, the background, obviously, of the case is a little bit more involved of the situation of the shooting. With the guy, they were looking. I understand it was a manhunt, or
they're searching for the guy. He had done the rape. They knew who it was. They suspected he was on an area behind the property. The area is basically small farming community. The houses are a couple hundred yards between them, and there's a shack on the back of one of the properties, which for some reason they thought he was there. So the police SWAT team came out and they had it all surrounded and they kicked the door in and so forth. Then the guy wasn't there. And now they had no idea where he was because they thought he had not escaped the area. So now they don't know where he is. So they spread everybody out. They got all these volunteers, including the father. And the father and a friend of his were walking together, both armed. They're all the people in the local area are all out looking for this guy. And the guy comes walking out of the bushes. And they recognized him. They all knew who he was. He'd been hanging around the area for a while. They knew him by name. And 4 shots rang out, and the guy's dead. And all the police and everybody else came running.
And he was unarmed, obviously.
There's a guy, as far as we know, he was unarmed. Right. And the guy there was no weapon used in the rape, so we presume it's unarmed. But there the guy is, literally blown to pieces. And the police come and charge and arrest the guy for murder, which turned out to be second degree because we don't have the premeditation thing there. Everybody on this panel and everybody looking at this tape can probably
sympathize with the guy.
Sympathize with the father. Is this the type of thing, Michael, where we get jury nullification?
It could happen. This is a highly emotional case. A good jury, meaning one that the defense attorneys carefully vet to seat individuals who are going to be sympathetic to this gentleman. And they could easily come back and say, sure enough, we believe that a homicide was committed, but it was justified and therefore we're finding not guilty. They could do all sorts of things. It's interesting that the passion of the moment is in the New York law at several levels. They could actually charge this guy with an E felony, which is punishable by probation. And honestly, that would be the appropriate level of penalty.
I'd agree. That seems the appropriate thing, exactly.
Appropriate thing here, because that's a pure heat of passion. You acted in a knowing manner without the intent to cause the death, with overriding issues causing the action. One of the things that he did wrong, quite honestly, was, from my research on this, he shot the guy and then basically said, yeah, I shot him. Okay, maybe if he had shot the guy and then talked to an attorney before he talked to the police. In this circumstance, it might have been difficult because, like you said, they were all spread out and
the cops were already there.
They were right there.
He didn't have a machete to throw down next to him.
Well, you don't throw a machete down, but there's lots of fear for yourself is a justifiable defense. Rape is a violent crime. And this was a fairly young, fit individual. The rapist, the alleged rapist, was 35 years old. So it could easily go that what he said to the police led to the charges.
And another thing that I'm thinking too is that I find it amazing that the police on the scene who are organizing the search for this guy would let the father go out. First of all, let him go out at all. Secondly, go out armed.
I've actually been in court cases where we're all sitting up in front of the bar with the defendant, and the family is excluded from the courtroom because somebody's worried they're going to come in court on camera in front of everybody, come over the rail and try to kill him.
Yeah, well, it's like in New Orleans several years ago, that father whose son was taken out to California and was, molested by a karate instructor, and he lied in wait, and it's in video because they were filming him, and he comes off the telephone and shoots this guy in the head.
Absolutely.
And the grand jury comes back and says, "Oh, no bill."
Yeah.
Well, I could see this being no bill.
Yeah.
I mean, with the passion and
the police were doing their job, and obviously was it on an emotional level? Most of you guys, I would think, would probably have done something to protect your daughter. I'm not saying you're going to shoot the guy. The cops are doing their job, but it could be turned over, and then the jury could be like, we probably would have done the same thing.
He fell and hit his head 72 times.
Right. I think Bob's right. The right jury on this one with the right facts.
He's got a chance.
He has a chance. I've taught classes where I told people, you can't shoot to stop certain things like the theft of your property, but somebody one time posed the question, well, what if you're at the mall with your child and they walk away and you see a guy leading your child away and you're pretty sure he's a bad guy and you shoot him, what's going to happen? I said, well, you better have your child in the courtroom with you during your trial, sitting right there on the front row, and you better have a bunch of parents in the jury box. And that's the basis for putting a good jury together. A jury that will look at the law but also look at the facts and determine within the law, was a crime committed? Not just the letter of the law. There is a dead guy, no question about that. He shot him, no question about that. The issue is, when he pulled the trigger, did he commit a crime? And that's jury nullification if they come back and say, despite all the evidence, we find no crime happened.
Well, that's what I'm asking. If we have a jury of 12, that's what they use in New York, I
Yes,
assume.
12.
And one of them gets through all the redirect and so forth and so on when they're being seated as a juror, and at the end of the thing just says, not guilty.
Yeah, you could have
You get a hung jury, yeah.
I don't know how in the world you don't hang this up if you've got a couple of dads with similar age
I can't imagine.
daughters on there.
Everybody's excluded from the jury who has a child. You know, to start with. I mean, that just doesn't work.
No.
And this guy, I mean, I'll go defend him. I mean, I can find something on his gun maybe that didn't work and it went off by itself, you know.
4 times?
Yeah, you know, it happens. If you get the widget over that way.
Sympathetic
Detonation,
sympathetic fire.
But everybody that's on this panel in law enforcement has been there and knows somebody in law enforcement that has been there. I've bailiffed in court on cases where not really worried about somebody in the family coming in and killing the guy, because I really thought the guy deserved to get killed right there too. I didn't kill anybody obviously doing that, but I understand exactly. I can't say I haven't had a daughter attacked, but I've watched enough cases that just, you see this and you just go, this is outside the law.
My mother was a victim of a guy named David Carpenter, who turned out to be the trailside killer in Northern California. And in 1984, I had to escort her to, this was in 1969 when he broke into the house that she was at and tied her up and stole some money and stole her car, and then went on a criminal spree, and then did 8 years in California's wonderful penal system and was cured, and then came out and killed, I think, 8 or 9 people. Well, I had to take her down to Los Angeles because they moved the trial out of Santa Cruz County because, oh my God, everybody was going to hang him in Santa Cruz County. And I was asked by the DA and by the DA's investigator, says, look, tomorrow when you go and listen to your mom testify, would you do me a favor? And I was special agent with Customs then. He says, would you please leave your gun with the bailiffs at court? And, you know, he was like, he says, I don't want this guy, and he says, I don't want you to hear something. I said, look, man, I've been there, I've done that. But I made a deal with him. I'll leave my gun as long as I get a front row seat when he went to the gas chamber in California. He's yet to do that. He's the oldest guy on death row in California.
Yeah, well, I went to college with a guy who did 27 years with the law enforcement agency, his agency back east. And I asked him why he didn't finish out, because he started young and he could have been the chief as far as I was concerned. And he told me a story about how they had a young child raped and killed, and everybody was looking for this guy. They had a good description of him, and he and his partner kind of talked around the edges about, what do we do if we catch this guy? And they went around the corner into an alley, and there was a guy walking out to a dumpster carrying a package, and it was him. And I didn't ask. I was smart enough to say, okay. He goes, nope. He went to trial, and I resigned the next day because
there's your answer.
The only reason he went to trial is as we were walking around the corner, another squad car rolled into the alley. He said, I couldn't do it anymore. I was done. So he resigned and went to school, and now he's a social worker, actually. But it's a struggle.
We're going to have to cut it right there. We've run out of time once more. We'll be back next week at the same time, same station. Thanks for watching. Tune us in one more time, please.